I read it. You said that you get more that paintings do inspire more than music.
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, I spend a lot of my time. I mean, this year, for instance, just came over with my family. Went to the Wright Museum. Obviously, Van Gogh, but the Wright Museum was just amazing. Because it's been closed for so long, it was just stunning. There's a track on the album called "Between the Clock and the Bed," which is a painting by Monk, which I also saw many years ago now. Blank Squares, a painting by Malevich, which kind of, I guess I find that period of modernist art, especially when modern art was invented in Europe, just kind of captivating, and as people, they're much more interesting than musicians.
Yeah.
I find musicians, as a rule, pretty dull.
Yeah? They don't think that much, or?
No, I mean, like, I went to The Hague and saw all the early Mondriaans, you know, before he went really graphic.
Yeah.
You know, and those early paintings are absolutely amazing. The landscape ones,
yeah.
It's just so evocative. And obviously you don't associate that with Mondriaan really, you just think of the New York grids. And kind of that journey really that artists take, and the way they kind of intellectualize their work, I just find it more stimulating than a lot of musicians really. I mean, I write a lot of words, so I guess I'm less musical than I am lyrical.
But is it for you, how do you start out to write a lyric then? Because there are many references on this.
Yes.
I mean, John Hughes, Malevich, you said.
Yeah.
How do you start out a lyric normally then, if you get the music from James?
Well, no, the lyric always comes first.
Yeah?
Yeah, the lyric is always given to James, or when I write quite a bit of music as well now. It's always a title or a phrase. You know, like you said, something like Black Square, it was just a title initially, and it was just the idea of invention really, of drawing a line in the sand, and that particular painting sort of invented abstraction really in art, you know, just such a bold statement. And then you try and manipulate that into a lyric that has different meanings as well, but that moment of inspiration, sometimes it does come from music as well, it comes from literature, it comes from film, it comes from feeling, from politics. I think we've always been the same really, it's always that spark of imagination. And this album in particular is we tried to make it quite uplifting because it's about lots of the things that we love and we find that has given us inspiration along the way. Can you move your mic a little bit more up?
Up?
Yeah.
Is that so?
A little bit more, yeah.
Sorry. I got it up by then. Oh, here we go.
Yes.
How's that?
Yeah. Yeah. How come you decided it to be more uplifting?
Because Rewind the Film, which we released last year, was a very kind of delicate, acoustic, internal, bleak, trying to come to terms with being 45 and still being in a rock and roll band and looking in the mirror. It was a very Welsh album, it was very centred on where I live in particular, in South Wales. Whereas this album was much more inspired by travelling through Europe, as we have done over the last, 2 decades really, and picking up fragments of musical inspirations through krautrock especially, and artistic inspiration wherever we've been.
Yeah, and there has been some anti-European sentiments now. What do you think of that?
Well, for me, for me, Europe is just a constant source of inspiration. I like to see it as some sort of thread of artistry, really. Some amazing, when you think of all the different languages and all the different cultures, but sometimes it's unified through art, which I find really, really uplifting and inspiring. As a concept, I kind of love traveling and being in Europe.
Yeah.
As a political entity, it's just so complicated, it kind of drives you to despair sometimes. But there's some scary times It's a very uncertain time, I think, not just for Europe, for the whole world, but I've sort of buried myself in kind of an artistic journey rather than a political journey on this album.